and welcome to Betwixt the Books. Gretchen and I have a cool announcement for the new year, and we wanted to share sort of a slight experiment and just a general thing that we sort of do anyway with you guys. Especially with the Storygraph having the capability of adding in challenges and creating your own challenges, we wanted to challenge ourselves with our reading this year. So we've created a reading challenge that will be in the description box below that is specific to the books that we want to read together. So the books that we're choosing for our joint reviews, we have created a specific reading challenge for that, which we're calling the Betwixt the Books Buddy Challenge. You are welcome to join us not only just in reading the books that we're planning to read to fulfill those challenges, but you can also read your own books to fulfill those challenges if that's something that interests you. But we wanted to go through all of the challenges that we had chosen for this, so hopefully you enjoy. I will let Gretchen start, and then we will go back and forth with those challenges.
Okay, we should note right up front that even though they're going to end up in some order for this video, this might not be the order that we do these challenges in. These are just a way for us to guide our reading throughout all of 2021, so that when we pick books to read together, we don't have to use our brains as much. Woohoo! So, if you've been following me for a little while, you might know that I've gotten super into history books. But many of those history books, because I've been reading books that are biographies on American presidents, are written by white men specifically. There have been a couple of women who I've read books by, but not a lot. So my first contribution to this challenge was to read a history book by a person of color. And fingers crossed, I'm hoping that we do for that with Stamped from the Beginning by Ibram Kendi. So if not that, something else as amazing.
My first challenge that I wanted to talk about has to do with gender identity, and I wanted to read a book by or about a non-binary person. Now this is specific because most of the books that I have read in the past that have non-binary people, they're usually androids, robots, aliens, non-humanoid creatures, and I wanted to read something that has an actual non-binary human. So if that's too much of a challenge for you, any non-binary thing is fine. If you read Murderbot and you love it, that's perfectly fine. Murderbot is a non-binary icon. I love it. But the challenge for me was to find and read a book that is written by or is specifically centering a non-binary person, human, and not just some other creature, because they exist and we exist as someone who identifies as gender non-conforming. This is one of the reasons why I chose this as a challenge.
Speaking of continuing to edit our own reading, as you also may have known, recently I started reading a lot of romance novels, and by a lot I mean a frightening amount. However, same issue as with the history books. Most of the books that I've read have been straight couples, so like a dude and a girl. They do the kissy bits, often written, although not entirely, by white straight, as far as I know, women. So another challenge that I want to accomplish this year is reading at least one, although hopefully more on my own, of Own Voices LGBTQIA plus romance. So no straight couples, but also having those books written by an Own Voices author. There's been a lot of controversy of late that I've seen about, people who are not of that particular LGBTQ plus community writing those books. So I want to make sure that I am giving my money and my time to the right person.
My next challenge is one that makes sense for me in my reading. I suggested that we read a book that has been translated into English. No caveats aside from the fact that it is translated. It's something that I enjoy and something that I care about, so it's just something that I wanted to add into our reading this year, and I enjoy sharing books from other cultures with other points of view. So yes, just a book translated into English. Pretty straightforward.
Well, if Michaela is gonna make me read a translated book, I'm gonna make her read one of my favorite genres. I've also talked recently about how I've been struggling to read young adult just in general. So another book challenge that I've put on here is to read a YA fantasy. No other caveats than that, just a young adult fantasy. And hopefully I'll be able to enjoy it, and maybe it'll put me back on the road of reading what prior to COVID was my favorite genre in like the world. So here's to hoping.
So the next challenge is a bit of a fun one, and it's what I am calling a second chance book. Basically, that's just a book by an author that we've read previously. This is fun for us because it means that we can give a little bit more context to our reviews. We can talk about something that, like, how this author has grown throughout time. This was an earlier book of theirs that they have read, and this is a book that we've read now, and this is how that compares to the other one. Whether it's another book in a series, or if it is just another standalone novel, or maybe the start to a different series by the same author, that doesn't matter as much as long as we are giving that author a second chance. The other thing is that it doesn't matter whether we liked or did not like the book previously. That's the best thing about second chances. It could be something that both of us are kind of like meh on, and we're trying to give them another shot to see if they have grown over time or not. So yeah, a second chance book.
So in the same vein as Second Chance, one of our other challenges is to read an entire series. So we're not talking like Discworld series here. We're talking about a duology or a trilogy so that we can read a story through all the way from the beginning to the end. Because sometimes, you know, we read a book and we say, oh, I can't wait to read the next book in this series, or I can't wait to read more by this author, and then we don't do it because we read very widely, and that's fine. But like Michaela said, there's something so interesting about being able to compare books either by the same author from the same series. So while Michaela just talked about our second chance prompt, this one is to read a whole series from beginning to end and be able to actually say, hey, this series is good or not. So that will be very exciting, if a bit time consuming.
Speaking of timeliness, the next challenge is to read an arc on time. Folks on BookTube probably know this, but just in case you didn't, an arc is an advanced reader copy, so it's a book that we would get ahead of time from the publisher, and we are trying to both read that and give a review either just after or before the release date for that book. That way that we are talking about it when the sales are most important for the book, as well as when the hype for that book is perhaps the highest. Reading a book on time is important in that case, so yes, reading an advanced reader copy book together to discuss, but reading it on time.
So as you may or may not have guessed, timing is one of the things that we're also trying to work on in this challenge. If you followed us for a bit, you know that it's not our strongest suit. But my final challenge to tell you guys about is we want to read 3 separate books from the Rick Riordan Presents imprint. So these are not Rick Riordan written books, these are from his publishing imprint, where he has been so good about championing own voices and POC authors. So we have picked out those 3 books. It's not just a random free-for-all. We want to read Aru Shah and the End of Time by Roshni Chokshi, The Storm Runner by J.C. Cervantes, and again, this is what goes back to timeliness. We'd like to read The Last Fallen Star by Grace Kim. This is a book that is coming out this year, whereas Aru Shah and The Storm Runner are already out, and in some cases those series are actually finished. The Last Fallen Star will be put out this year, and so we hope to read it and review it in a slightly timely fashion so that for once we are not reviewing books a bajillion years after they've been popular. We will see if we achieve this thing.
And the final challenge, speaking of diversity, is I wanted to read a book that centers a religion other than Christianity. So Christianity is perhaps the major religion in our area of the world, and therefore a lot of English books tend to be somewhat Christian-centric. I wanted to read a book that centered a religion other than that, whether that be Islam, Judaism, something as interesting as maybe voodoo, or a Native American religion, something that is not Christian. That was just the point, to read something diverse and something different, a story that comes from a different place. So yes, a story that centers a religion other than Christianity. Easy enough prompt, something that you can do as well. Think about joining us.
Alright guys, that is all 10 challenges from us. As you can tell, just trying to make sure that we keep track of our reading, keep doing our own personal diversity audits, and also read things on time, but most importantly, have fun. When we created this challenge, we didn't even try to do this, but it turned out that each of us contributed 5 prompts, which is amazing. And even on the ones that I know I might not like, I am excited because the strength of this channel is that I don't always like the things Michaela likes, and Michaela doesn't always like the things that I like. So A, when we do find something we both like, it's like, it's a big deal. But secondly, again, it makes sure that we both remain wider readers than we would be on our own, and that's the fun of a buddy channel. So again, if you would like to come do this challenge with us as well, if you have a Storygraph account, feel free to join in on that. We'll have the link down in the description, and you can look forward to seeing whether or not we actually complete this. I have faith in us, but then we always talk a really, really good game in January of a new year and things happen. But I'm excited, and let's all just go on an adventure and see how it goes. At least it's not 2020, right? Thanks, guys. Bye.